All right, so it looks like we are live yet again with another episode of the Sunshine State Happy Hour, powered by Florida Beer Blog and Florida Beer Media. This is Dave, your host and author. Steve, what are you drinking right now?
I'm drinking Thunderfunk from Water Brewing up in Lynn, Mass.
Yeah, it's amazing how we got these beers, and maybe
right?
If we had somebody from Water Brewing to tell us all about these beers, maybe like their head brewer or something, we might be able to learn something about it. Oh, look, if it isn't Adam Denny Golab, who just happens to be the head brewer at Water Brewing in Massachusetts. Adam, how are you?
I'm doing well. Excited to be here. Excited to talk beer with you guys. Super excited.
Excellent.
Distributing in Florida.
I know there's so much to chat about, but so we'll chat. So we'll start off. Obviously, you're from Lynn, which is north of Boston, south of Salem. And tell us a little bit about Bentwater. And it's kind of an interesting name for a brewery.
Yeah, sure. We've been open for about 5 years at this point. We opened at the end of 2015. We were founded by a group of local guys. They were home brewing, you know the story. Home brewing, decided they wanted to open a brewery. And I'm not, I wasn't the original head brewer. I took over the role about 2 years ago. But I was lucky enough to join the team. And, it's 3 guys from the area, home brewing, loved what they were doing, really passionate about beer, and decided they wanted to open a brewery. But, maybe didn't want to work there full time. So they hired some staff and opened up a big old brewery. The reason they ended up picking up Lynn has a great water source. We have our own reservoirs, we have a water treatment center, pretty unique for the area. So when they could, they would be getting water from their friends that live in Lynn to brew with at home, because the water is so great. So I ended up settling in Lynn, and it's been a great 5 years so far. Just about. I've had a lot of fun. We're all having fun. And, it got to a point where, we distributed to Massachusetts and a little bit to New Hampshire, and we needed more space to grow.
Nice. And so it's kind of interesting because I know Steve was stationed in that area, so he lived there for a couple of years. And it seems, especially listening to him and from taking a look at the craft beer community and the industry of what's going on, it seems like the Boston area, and maybe even Massachusetts in general, is sort of controlled by the 800-pound behemoth that is Sam Adams. Is that something where everybody sort of starts there and then trickles down, or is it possible to have a really vibrant scene away from what Sam and his friends built?
Do you mean specifically for people who work in the industry? Like, where are we getting?
Well, just the culture, yeah.
Kind of thing?
Well, just the culture. Is
generally we go Sam Adams. It's always on there at least a couple times. The Harpoon. So they're IPA.
Yeah.
Sam Adams had an impact on and being industry. I saw here years ago, a little longer than that. It was one of the first breweries that craft brewers do. So definitely, I think a lot of people, whether or not they're still drinking Sam Adams, definitely have a hold a special place in their heart for the beers they put out. Sam Lager. If there's no craft on tap somewhere, there's probably Sam Lager, and it's always good.
I know, Steve. There's the one beer that was in Boston that you could only find in Boston, right?
Oh yeah, Sam Adams Boston Brick Red.
But personally, I'm a little bit more interested with this. So, Bentwater, what was the decision to get into Florida, to the Florida market? It's kind of an interesting market down here. So, how was that decision made?
So I think a lot of it, it's kind of like it's a funny thing. People from New England tend to, when they retire, go to Florida. You get the snowbirds. They'll spend their winters in Florida, their summer here. So I have a family. My grandfather lives down there. My aunts and uncles live down there. They're all retirement age, and so I think the train of thought was sort of where maybe down in Florida, people from New England are creating a little bit of home, and that would be the initial base of people interested to buy our beer, and then then we'll win over some local people, and then I go from there. And I go to Florida at least once or twice a year just to visit family, so it'd be great to be able to buy my own beer down there. It's kind of just where do people from New England end up, and Florida kept coming up as a place where it might be possible to just have a local community of people who be drinking our beer regularly somewhere else.
Gotcha. And so we have 4 of your beers coming down to the state, and it should be available on store shelves immediately, like as of right now, if I'm correct.
I believe so. We sent out a truckload last week, so I'm assuming it made it down right now.
But Steve and I have the kind of the sneak peek, and we're going to be talking about 2 of those beers. And the first is what I can assume is your kind of standard core IPA, and that would be Thunderfunk. And I'm going to just mess with the lighting and the can, because one thing that your can has been very well noted for is how kind of trippy they are. It's a very distinct label design that kind of goes throughout all the beers.
Yeah, very mesmerizing.
So tell us a little bit about Thunderfunk in terms of being an IPA, because I'm getting a lot of herbal notes from the hops with this one.
Sure. So this is more of a a traditional IPA. It's not, obviously it's pretty clear. You can see through it. So it's not that hazy New England style. And definitely it's a little bit darker than you would normally see with the New England. So it has a little bit of that caramel malt in there. It's a little somewhere between like a West Coast, English IPA, somewhere in that range where, it's a little more bitter. And, you're picking up a little bit of herbo. There's a little bit of pine resin in there. And, it does have mosaic in it. So you can get a little bit of tropical fruit, a little sweet fruit in that. But I definitely do think it leans more towards that piney, herbal, resiny kind of, IPA style. And this was actually the first IPA we put out. So this is kind of our original before we started the hazy style.
Yeah, it's a very crushable IPA too. I can pound these things all day.
Be careful. They're 7.3%.
Yeah, it's okay.
I'll tell you, it sure doesn't taste like it.
No, not at all. Very easy.
And it's interesting in terms of the beers that you have in your tap room and sort of in the area. Do you find that people are more interested in these citra forward, big citrus, big grapefruit and orange style IPAs, or do they want more of something like this? It's a little bit more herbal. It's a little bit more earthy. It's not quite as excessively bitter, but there's still a lot of alpha acid and hop flavor to it.
Definitely, I think, Massachusetts around Boston is definitely the hazy New England IPAs are king. We have Trillium, Treehouse up this way, so it's like, that's what people tend to be looking for when they're looking for an IPA. When they grab one off the shelf, see IPA, they assume it's going to be hazy, it's going to be juicy, it's going to be all that. That being said, we do have a lot of fans of this beer. It's our second best-selling beer. And I do think that there is a place for this in the IPA world, despite what people seem to think. But it's sometimes nice to take a little break from that juicy, thick and creamy beer to get something a little crisper, a little bit more bitter, and just kind of bring it back a little bit to that old school IPA style.
Absolutely. And I don't want to slam New England IPAs too much because that's the other beer that we're going to be drinking. But yeah, absolutely. It seems like a lot of people are jumping on the New England bandwagon, and the traditional IPA seems to be left in the dust a little bit. So it's interesting that it's your second bestseller and that it's one of the beers that you brought down to Florida. Are we going to be trying your number one bestseller, or is that another beer that's coming down on the truck?
No, that's the other beer we're drinking. It's our number one bestseller. Yeah,
gotcha. That works. Well, tell us a little bit about Bentwater, the kind of things that you put on the list. Obviously, there's much more than just the cans that you have. What kind of styles can people generally expect when they come in, and what are the things that you really enjoy making to have up there for your patrons?
Unfortunately, right now our tap is closed due to the current situation. But when it is open, we have 14 tap lines, and we generally have our year-round beers, seasonal beers on there, as well as we have a small pilot system where putting out smaller batches to test and try to see what people are liking, and so I can have some creative freedom as well. Our general core lineup is really pretty IPA heavy. We have a couple lagers in there. We do darker beers in the winter, and so it ends up being kind of seasonality with where it comes with brewing. But for me personally, my favorite style of beer in general is a pale lager, and I do find a lot of enjoyment in those beers because they're technically challenging. They, any flaws are readily apparent, and you really can't hide behind anything. So it's they're fun to brew, they're fun to drink. So that's kind of my style. I like to do, but in the tap room, we'll bring single hop IPAs, just try new stuff out, kind of try to find the next hop or whatever. We do some kettle sours, that kind of stuff. We'll have barrel variants of our darker beers that make it to distribution because it's such a small amount, kind of stuff. So we try to hit it all.
Now, has Massachusetts let you guys do to-go sales at all, or?
Yeah, so we are doing to-go sales, and actually, it's kind of a gray area right now whether or not we are able to open our tap room. Right now, the rule kind of says that you have to have food service, and breweries are going to ground that by having a full-time food truck. But for us, it doesn't make a lot of sense right now. We're still trying to get things straight, distribution-wise. We opened up in Florida. At the end of last year, we just opened up New Hampshire. So we're trying to catch up just distribution-wise, and then come back. And once we have a good plan with our tap room and everyone's feeling good about going back out, reopen it at that point.
Was there, I always find this question kind of interesting, is there a big push from your customer base that you should open up, whether you can or not is not the question? Is there a big, I want you to be open, you should be open, why don't you care about your customers' feeling, or do people really understand in that area?
I definitely, so our tap room, we've never been a tap-focused brewery. We've been much more a distribution brewery. We obviously, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, there's a good crowd in there. But, if people understand the fact that, it'd be difficult to open a tap room and, we're having to tip servers. It'd be hard if, we're only getting a couple people a night and people aren't feeling good about coming out, kind of thing. So I think people have been pretty understanding about it. And, we've been getting pretty good support with our to-go beer sales. So that's been awesome.
And from the sound of it, it looks like your number one beer to go, as usual, is the other beer that we have for today, and that is Sluice Juice, which is slightly vertigo-inducing can. Visible cornhole board with can labels, and I know both of these will be going on pretty soon. So,
yeah, Sluice Juice is definitely going on the cornhole board today. Because not only is it a great beer, it was canned on my son's birthday.
Yeah, that's kind of that's amazing. That's so cool. Yeah, these cans were not canned too long ago, which is always great, especially with the New England IPAs. This style is.
Yeah.
And it's got that massive tropical note. It's like drinking a pineapple smoothie. Early smells like it. So yeah, tell us about Sluice Juice.
Yeah, so Sluice Juice is our year-round New England IPA. We do like one-offs of different styles of New England IPAs. But this is, you can always get it. In Massachusetts, you can pretty much walk into any liquor store and find it for the most part, which is awesome.
Nice.
But so it, it's in the New England vein. It's hazy, it's juicy, it's fruity. It's got a nice full mouthfeel. It's hopped with Citra, Galaxy, Wamea, Matsueka, and Simcoe. So it's getting, a big, huge dose of all juicy, fruity hops. And I think they really shine here. And you're saying you're getting tropical notes. I definitely get that. I get a lot of lime peel. And a lot of citrus notes. When I go to grab one of our beers, I generally grab this beer. I'm not the biggest IPA drinker, but this beer always just when I grab it, I'm like, oh, it's just so good. And maybe you don't go back for a second one, but that first one is just always it's one of my favorite beers to have in my ship.
Nice. It's and it's nice because with this, there are some beers down here, and I know Steve and I have had them and enjoyed them, but they kind of take this and then they go a little bit more so with sweet fruits and a lot of lactose additions and things like that. But it seems like this is more, let's just enjoy the hops for what they are and just let them shine a little bit more, which is fantastic.
Yeah. And I mean, definitely my philosophy for New England IPAs is definitely a little on the drier end of things. I don't like to have that huge residual sweetness in there. I like a little more, I want a beer that when you sip it, you want to take another taste. And I feel like a lot of that is having that little dryness to it. That being said, it's not a dry beer. It doesn't have some sweetness in there, but it's definitely drier on the end of the New England IPA spectrum, I feel like.
Yeah, which is interesting. The other two, and I just double checked from the people that we're talking to, the other two beers that are coming down, you were correct. There is a lager coming down and a double IPA. So I'm assuming that you know which two of the beers those are. Can you give us a little rundown of those?
Yeah, so the double IPA is Double Thunderfunk. It's regular Thunderfunk's big brother. It actually started off as a bit of a joke between me and one of the other brewers. What would happen if we just took Thunderfunk and doubled it? And obviously, the final recipe did not end up being that, but it's it's big. It's 9.2% alcohol. Has a lot of similar hops that Thunderfunk has, and it's definitely that West Coast style more so with the it's bright. It's got a little caramel notes in there from crystal malt. It's Cascade heavy, and it's got a big bitterness to it. So it's definitely more that West Coast double IPA style. And then the other beer is we made a beer called Goat in honor of Tom Brady, the greatest player of all time.
Tampa Bay's quarterback, Tom Brady.
Now that he shipped down to Tampa Bay, we decided why not send you guys down the greatest beer for the greatest player of all time. And actually, I don't have a can with me.
Just gonna say that. Thank you. Interesting. Yeah, it's and it's funny because, and I was just listening to a podcast that you were on last year, and one of the things that they mentioned, and that we've spoken to a lot of brewers, and they sort of said this, is the lager has kind of finally made its great triumphant comeback. It's shed the assumption and the dirty verbiage from being the American adjunct that we've been forced to drink for the past 3 decades, from the 70s till like maybe 5 years ago. And it's really come full circle. Is that something that you're as well, and that people are starting to appreciate what a true lager can actually be?
I mean, personally, I appreciate a true lager any time of the year, any time of the past whatever years. But no, I definitely think that lager is making the swing back, and I think that a lot of people who have been drinking craft for a while, maybe experiencing a little bit of palate fatigue, perhaps really high IPAs for a real long time can wear on you, and you're just looking for something a little that tastes like beer. I mean, that's what I kind of always joke, where it's I've gotten Untapped reviews for that beer where it's just like, oh yeah, it tastes like beer, it tastes like a Miller or something. I'm like, cool. I mean, that's what it's supposed to be. It's not supposed to be something super crazy. It's just supposed to be something refreshing and crisp. You want to drink it. You know, we released that beer, I want to say 2 years ago, and you know, it's definitely starting to pick up a little bit of steam more recently, and hopefully it keeps growing because I love brewing that beer. It's a great beer to brew, and I love drinking it fresh. So the more often we can brew it, the better. But no, I think lagers are definitely coming back, and I definitely think that people are starting to realize that, you know, beers can be complex and interesting and cool without having to have, you know, 3 pounds per pound, 3 pounds per barrel dry hop in there, you know, something like that.
And I know that you said that your tap room is okay. I know that you said that your tap room is currently closed right now, but does that give you a little bit more time to play with lagering, maybe expand the number of lagers that you have available for package to go now that you have maybe a little bit more time and a little bit less fluid heading out the doors?
I mean, I wouldn't say we have less beer heading out the doors, because you know, I mean, obviously, back a couple months ago when, you know, restaurants and bars closed, like our retail accounts became, I was kind of skyrocketing. You know, like people were not be able to go out, so they were buying beer at the liquor stores and bringing it home. And then, you know, we had hit the timing right at the end of last year where we had opened up all of New Hampshire and the rest of Massachusetts. So we haven't really necessarily saw a drop in our sales. It's just been going to different places. So we're actually still pretty busy, which is awesome. Which is, you know, really lucky for us because I know there's a lot of people around us that aren't, and you know, they only distribute the immediate area, and we've been really lucky in that regard. So
yeah, I was
no, we
say,
haven't
what kind of I was going to say, what kind of stories have you heard, or a lot of your, I don't want to say competitors, but your brethren in the area, are you expecting a good number of them to not be here when 2021 rolls around, or is everybody making it work as best they can and will probably squeak through this?
I mean, I think that it's the, you know, the smaller taproom focused breweries the hardest, who didn't necessarily have, you know, their own packaging capacity. But you know, I'm pretty good friends with a Nano in the town over from us, and you know, they basically took this as an opportunity. They, you know, they reinvested in their company. They bought a canning line. You know, they're trying to package all of it, like they're doing themselves rather than paying, you know, a contract packaging company to come in and do it for them. And you know, I think that it took a lot of capital to do that. So I think that they're hoping it's going to pay off, you know, in the next year or so. But you know, I was talking to one of the owners of a brewery near us who opened like the first week of March this year, and they're still open and, you know, doing pretty well. They had a full kitchen, thankfully, so you know, they've been able to do to-go beer with to-go food, which kept them afloat. So you know, it really depends on the specific situation of the brewery, and I'm hoping everyone pulls through. And you know, a lot of people have been able to get PPP loans, so hopefully that just, you know, kept them afloat for the time being. And then, you know, as things, you know, get back to normal, hopefully soon, that, you know, they are able to keep going.
Yeah, it's a very uncertain time out there, and it's very nerve-wracking to say the least. But it sounds like you, because, like you said, you're primarily package and distribution heavy, it sounds like things were able to sort of hit a bump, obviously, but keep going relatively well for you.
Yeah, I would say relatively well. I would say normal. You know, it definitely was a weird, and what, like 6 months. You know, the other day, my wife and I were talking about it. You know, it's been like a long time since we've been doing all this, and but she's been working from home since March, and you know, we were splitting time at the brewery trying to like insert shifts and, you know, spread people out as much as possible. Just, you know, limit our contact between each other just in case, you know, one shift got sick, the other one could still work, kind of thing, so to keep things going. And you know, it's we were lucky with the packaging, and but you know, right now the big thing is going to be there's actually a can shortage. So we're looking at overall in like the aluminum can market, there's like a trillion can shortage based on it. So, the next struggle for us is going to maintain like being able to package beer. So we'll see how it goes. We've had to find a couple different, suppliers. So we're spreading our, trying to get as different many things as we can to, keep our supply going. But the biggest thing might be, Thunderfunk's in a 12-ounce can, Slushi's in a 16-ounce can. So obviously we can do both. There's a 12-ounce can, more 12-ounce cans and 16-ounce cans right now. So we might actually switch Thunderfunk to a 16-ounce can, just depending, if we can keep getting 12-ounce cans.
Yeah, and that's a good question. I was going to actually ask you, because obviously the 12-ounce can has been king for decades and decades. But what I've really started to notice, a lot of breweries like, instead of a 6-pack of 12s, they like doing the 4-pack of 16s. I'm going to assume that that's how these two different labels are sold. Do you see yourself favoring the 16 versus the 12? Because that seems to be what a lot of others in the craft beer industry are doing.
Yeah, I mean, from like a quality just beer standpoint, I don't think it really makes a difference. I mean, obviously a couple more ounces in the 16, which is always nice. But I definitely think, like when we opened, we only had 12-ounce cans.
Yeah.
12-ounce 6-packs. When we bought a new canning line last year, sales is very much on you. We need to be able to do 16-ounce cans. And I definitely think that's more dictated by, what the consumer is looking for, what their impression is of a beer. Because, maybe when you see a 12-ounce can, you think it's a little more old-fashioned. I don't know.
Well, you're kind of more invested into a 6-pack of 12-ounce cans, whereas 4 16-ounce cans, I'll grab 2 or 3 4-packs and mix and match.
But it's like it's not much difference in the amount of beer. It just feels like 4 versus 6
at all. There's no difference whatsoever. It's just having those 2 extra full cans makes you more set to those. I don't know, maybe.
Yeah, so definitely a lot of the reason we went to 16 ounce to some more beers is because consumer demand and what our sales team is coming back and saying, being like, this is what people are looking for. Especially New England IPAs, they got to be in 16-ounce cans.
If you have a big glass, you need a 16-ounce can.
This one filled up nicely, which is great. But now, one of the things that I guess my question is, has Bentwater ever used glass? And I'm not even saying just the 6-pack of 12-ounce bottles, but even the 22-ounce bomber.
So we're not old enough to have used bombers. No. So the only glass we've ever done have been 750 mils of imperial stouts, like barrel aged stuff, that kind of thing. But I'm assuming, are you thinking about? Did you see Treehouse posting a picture of a 12-ounce bottle? Is that why you're asking?
No, the reason that I'm asking is because what I've noticed, and I listened to a podcast several months ago, and they were talking about the can shortage and the bottle and everything that you were saying, and how much, because so many breweries are really starting to package more now out of just necessity, they tend to be going more for aluminum. And this may be another nail in the coffin for finally getting rid of glass altogether in the craft beer industry. And even with the imperial stouts that you mentioned, you see them going more for maybe a couple of 16-ounce tall boys than you do 22-ounce bomber. So I was wondering if that's something that you have seen and that you sort of agree with, or at least have noted in the industry.
I mean, we definitely, last year was the first year we put our imperial stout into 12-ounce cans. So it was but we didn't do it in glass last year. But I did see a post from Treehouse basically showing that they're starting to do 12-ounce bottles of their beer, and I'm wondering if it's related to the the can shortage. Mm-hmm. I mean, I've worked on glass packaging lines, and they're a nightmare because when you break bottles, and it's a whole other can of worms versus crushing a can. You got to stop the line, glass incursion, everything kind of stuff. So I hope they don't come back for my our packaging guys' sakes. But I think If aluminum, if the shortage is really that serious, and we're not really able to keep demand up with what breweries need, or because I drink a lot of seltzer, regular seltzer, and there's been limited seltzer on shelves, so I'm assuming that's related to the can shortage as well.
I would assume so.
I could see glass making come back if it's really that much easier to get glass, and then there's probably a fair amount of used bottling lines available. So maybe next year everything will be in bottles. Who knows?
I don't know. I've seen bags show up, and that's actually a good question for the tap room.
The milk bags now.
Yeah, and that's a good question for. And it's a good question for people leaving the tap room. Obviously not everything that you have is in a 12 or 16 ounce. I would assume that you would do crowler fills, or are you allowing people to come in with growlers so you don't have to basically waste any of your packaging for the beers? They can just bring the packaging they already have.
We do growlers. Massachusetts, you can't fill growlers that aren't branded with your brewery.
Interesting.
So it's only our growlers that we sold to them. So we do glass growlers for our tap. 64-ounce glass growlers when we are open. I've been pushing hard for a crowler machine, but that just brings another now I have to buy a pallet of crowler cans. Then we have to rely on the taproom staff to be able to seam the can properly, that kind of stuff. So it's definitely been tabled for a couple years, but I definitely like the crowler format personally. I think it's great drinking a big dumb can.
Nice. So I guess what's in the tank? What do you have coming that people that are going to be in the area can really look forward to? I'm definitely excited to try this lager if I can find my hands on it pretty soon.
So up here, we have our fall seasonal coming out soon, which is a red rye IPA. Very classic West Coast, super bitter, super spicy, with rye in it. One of my personal favorite beers. It definitely tastes like that, crisp fall day up here in New England. I don't think we're sending it out to distro. It's just kind of going to be in this area for this year, maybe next year.
Mm-hmm.
But we actually we released was it probably a month ago at this point, we released a hard seltzer, spike seltzer. Everyone's getting into it. So we actually put one out. It moved quickly, which is awesome. So we, trying to work on some different flavorings, that kind of stuff, trying to figure that out. And we're going to be sending out some of it to distribution up here. I don't know whether it's going to hit Florida anytime soon. But it's pretty good. It took a while to get it down, but I think it's tasting really awesome.
Just remember, Florida is year-round seltzer weather, so they will always get drunk down here. You guys are going to start going to that winter, heavier beer weather soon.
It's true. I mean, and then we're going into October. It's a peanut butter stout, which is definitely going to sell great in Florida. And then our winter beer.
You'd be surprised.
Nice porter, and then we have our imperial stout that comes out over the winter too. So we have a lot of darker beers coming out. Obviously, seasonality, and kind of it's just it's with what's going on out in the wide world. It's kind of the status quo, unfortunately. So we're not doing anything super exciting. It's just kind of chugging along. But I think they're all really solid beers. Gotcha. I like them all. They were not necessarily all my recipe, but all
good. Well, I definitely think that Steve and I I know you have some people, Steve, that you can probably chat with, and we'll see if we can track down that lager.
Oh yeah, I'll make some calls.
I can send you over.
Adam, think he's
ordered, so I can send that over to you. Not sure where you guys are located.
Yeah, we'll chat.
Everyone that's purchased recently. So
Oh, nice. We'll chat when we get offline. So yay. So Adam, Denny, Golab, head brewer for Water Brewing in Lynn, Massachusetts. Slinger some really nice beers. I know Steve is really enjoying this New England IPA. I am as well. And you can find them now on Florida shelves, which is great news. We will see you all next week. We got another lager lover. Yay. Next week we will be back, same time. Still working on a couple of guests, so hopefully I'll be able to announce those pretty soon. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. If you're on Instagram and Twitter, we're at Florida Beer Blog or at Florida Beer Media. Facebook, we're at Beer Blog, but you're watching us on Facebook unless you're watching us on YouTube. So Adam, thank you so much for coming on the show. We appreciate it, and have a great rest of your day. Bye, everybody.
Thanks, guys.